When you add decimals, you always have to align the decimals up first. Then any empty spots you have to replace with a 0. Then just add normal. 2 plus 0 is 2. 6 plus 9 is 15, so add the 1, so 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 1 is 8, and the decimal just drops, and then you add 1, so your answer is 18.52. And then to check it, you would round 5.6 to 6, and then, it's negative. And then 12.9 rounds to 13. So, negative 13 plus negative 6 equals negative 18, which is close to 18.52. When subtracting decimals, you do the same thing as adding by aligning the numbers together, and then any empty spots are still zeros, and after that you subtract the numbers, and 9 minus 0 is 9. 3 minus 6 you can't do, so you have to borrow the 5, make it a 4, and that becomes 13. 13 minus 6 is 7, and then 4 minus 2 is 2, and 1 minus 0 is 1, so your answer is 12.79. Multiplying decimals. When multiplying decimals, you should always have the decimals, you never have the decimals lined up. You just keep it like a normal decimal problem. And however many spaces the decimal is, that's how many you have to move it over, so it's 2 and 1. So 7 times 2 is 14, and then 7 times 0 is 0, but you have to carry the 1, so it's 1. 7 times 4 is 28, and 0 times everything is 0. So at that, you get 3 on the spaces, so you have to move the decimal 3 over, and your answer is 2.814. How to divide decimals. So you always put the second number outside the box.
Lesson 3.3, how to divide decimals.
Okay, a decimal can never be in the middle, always has to be at the end. So you would move 1 over, and you would also move in the box 1 over as well. So then you would have 2 going, you would put your 0, and then 2 goes into 10 5 times, and it's 10. And then you put down a 6, and you have 2 go into 6 3 times, and it goes in even 0. So your answer should be 0.583. The inverse property of subtraction is addition. So when you do this problem, write it out as normal. Then you would take 5.8 and you would add it on both sides.
to do right here is add
5.8 crosses 5.8 out, so you have W left,
find out what's W.
and then you add 5.8 to 1.2,
That's a question.
which equals
So,
7.
and then we do the same thing to the other side.
So your answer would be 7.
So,
The inverse property of addition is subtraction. So when you do this, write the problem out. K plus 3.91 equals 28. So you would subtract 3.91 on each number. So those cross out. So then you would put minus 3.91, and you have to always make sure your decimals line up. So you would have to borrow, make that 7, borrow but make it 9, and borrow and make this 10. So you would put 10 minus 1 is 9, 9 minus 9 is 0, 7 minus 3 is 4, 2 minus nothing is 2. So your answer would be 24.09. So, K, 24.09. The inverse property of multiplication is division. So you would write the normal problem out. But then you would divide each number by 1.2. The 1.2 divided by 1.2 crosses out, so you're left with y. Then you would add the 0. So then when you go to divide normal, you would put 1.2 divided by 1.44. 12 goes into 14 one time, so you would have 2 left, and then bring down the 4, and 12 goes into 24 twice. So you'd have 24 equals 0. So 1.2 times 1.2 equals 1.44. The inverse property of division is multiplication. So you would write h over 8.2 equals negative 0.6. So what you would do is put 8.2 next to each one, and 8.2 times 8.2 crosses out, and here you have h here. But then you would do 0.6 times 8.2 and leave the decimals out and go over the 1 space and 1 space, and that equals 2 spaces. So 6 times 2 is 12, and you would carry the 1. 2 times 0 is 0, but bring the 1, so it's 12. And then move over a space, and 8 times 6 is 48, so you would put an 8, and then 8 times 0 is 0, but you have the 4 left over. So 2, and then 9, and then 4. And when you move over 2 spaces, you get 4.92. When you add fractions with the same denominator, it is pretty simple. So when you go to write the problem out, all you have to do is keep it the same. The numerator is just 6 plus 3 over 15, which would equal 9/15. After that, your answer 9/15 would go into 3/5. When you subtract fractions, you have to with different denominators. You first have to find the least common multiple. So in order to find that, you have to see how many times 2 and 20 and what is the least common multiple. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, and 24 only has to go once. So after that, you find out that your least common multiple is 24. So after that, what you would do with that is, just 1 second, what you would do after that is with 24, you would have 21 times 1 and 24 times 1 to give you 21 over 24. But then you would have 1 over 2 be multiplied by 12, because that's how many times it took to give you 12 24ths. So then you would do 21 over 24 minus 12 24ths, and that would equal 9 24ths, and that is your final answer. And after that, you would have to also simplify it to 3/8. How to multiply fractions. When you multiply fractions and you write out the number, you want to make sure they're in simplest form. But after that, since you would just make it the numerators times the denominators, but what you can do is cross cancel, so 2 can go into 4 one time, so you can put a 1 there, but on the 4 it can go in twice. So 2 times 3 equals 6, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So your answer would be -1, 6. How to divide fractions. When you divide fractions, when you write out the problem, you have to flip the second number, but you keep the first. So it would be 3/4 divided by 7/6. Then after that, all you do is multiply. So 3/4 times 7/6. And there is something you can cross. So it would be 6 and 3. So that would go to 1 and that would go to 2. And then you have 7/8 as your answer. When you add fractions with equations, when you write the problem out, you then have to do the opposite of addition or subtraction. So this one would be addition and do subtraction. These cross each other out, so you're left with m, and 5/6 minus 1/6 is 4/6. But that could also equal 2/3, so your answer would be m equals 2/3. When you subtract fractions as expressions, when you write the problem out, you do the opposite. For this, it would be addition, so you would add 1/5 to both sides. But since these cross each other out, you're left with n, and you have 3 plus 1 over 5, which equals 4/5. So n equals 4/5. For this problem, you would not divide, because what you do instead is you have to use the reciprocal on each side. So that would be, this would become 1, and that 1 is nothing. So then you're left with x. But then when you put 5 over 1 on this side, you just have to put a 1 over there. So you're left with 4 times 5 over 1, which equals 20 over 1, which equals x equals 20. Just like the slide before, you do the exact same thing, the reciprocal on the slide. On the right next to it on the side. And then that would equal 1, so you cross that out. And then when you go to multiply, it's 1 times 1, 2, and 6. So your answer is 1/12. So y equals 1/12.